Welcome, everyone. I'm Mariquita Solis, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998 and is a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by our executive director, Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. Today, we are very honored to welcome Cheryl Moss. Cheryl is the host of the Better Life for Animals podcast, a show dedicated to amplifying the voices of sanctuaries, vegan activists, and compassionate leaders. Her mission is to share uplifting stories that inspire a more compassionate world and to spotlight the urgent need to support underrepresented animal sanctuaries. She is currently working to raise $100,000 for Mercy for Animals. Beyond podcasting, Cheryl has built a successful career in banking and is an accomplished children's author. A graduate of Main Street Vegan Academy, she actively promotes plant-based living through her books, including Gabriel, Cluck, and Pickle the Pig. These beautifully illustrated stories inspire young readers to embrace kindness, sustainability, and compassion towards animals. Cheryl is also preparing to launch a virtual summit in the coming months that will bring together sanctuary leaders, advocates, and supporters to share strategies for sustainability, fundraising, and outreach. This summit reflects her commitment to amplifying the voices of those doing critical work for animals while equipping sanctuaries with the tools they need to thrive. When she isn't writing or interviewing guests, Cheryl enjoys Pilates, spending time with her rescue dogs, and being with her grandchildren. Through her advocacy podcasts and books, she encourages positive change for animals and the planet. So, welcome, Cheryl. You've done a lot. So, I'm excited to meet you in person. I've heard a lot about you, and I'm sure our listeners are looking forward to this conversation. If you're watching, please put your comments and questions that you might have for us in the chat. So thanks for being here, Cheryl.
Thank you, Mariquita. It's such a pleasure to join you.
Well, let's get straight to the questions. I want to know how long you've been vegan and how did that process start? When did you gain an awareness about veganism?
I began to become aware, I would say in the 90s, when I was in my 30s. I knew something wasn't right with how we were getting our food sources. I had tried a number of different diets, but I was also working. I had 2 teenagers. I was divorced. I was a busy person. But it came around 20 years ago when I was talking with a friend. We were actually talking about, different vegan options out there. And it just hit me. I thought, you know what? I'm done. We don't even give these animals a life. It's cruel. It's unnecessary. I don't need it. And I'm not doing it anymore. So for me, although I had been cutting back, I didn't really eat meat for 10 years before that, but I was still eating chicken. I was certainly eating salmon, the occasional dairy. So I had already made somewhat of a transition, but my heart said enough that day. So that was about 20 years ago.
Wow. So yeah, I love to hear that because so you've seen the change in the industry, in the grocery stores. When people say that there hasn't been change, I'm sure that you could speak to that.
Well, there has been change. Back in the day, in fact, in the 90s, when I first took a stab at eating raw, it wasn't easy to do. Your options were oftentimes salad. Sometimes I would go to a restaurant and have a salad, and there would be nothing else I could eat, and so I would order another one. So yes, nowadays there are I mean, just think about the dairy section as an example. There's Miyokos, there's all the different wonderful plant-based food, cheeses and ice creams, non-ice creams, all, there's even my husband, who's not a vegan, we don't have any dairy in our house, which I consider a major win because you don't need to. They're just fabulous options. They've really improved and they continue to innovate. And so it's never been easier to do the right thing.
Very true, because I kind of started my journey in 95. So it was not a linear process, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's even just walking through the store the other day, I was very excited to see that whole section dedicated to non-dairy milk. So it's wonderful to see that. So when you went vegan and you started this change, did you have supports in your family or your friends, or what was that reaction?
I didn't remember talking about it a whole lot back then. I was working. I had found a couple plant-based meal prep companies, just out of their own personal kitchens. I would pick up food once a week so that I would have lunch. But for the very long time, I was content to just be vegan on my own. I didn't really feel like I needed to turn anyone else in my space to veganism. I was so no, and nobody in my family thought it was a great idea. Nobody in my family joined me, but it didn't matter because I knew I was doing the right thing. I was doing the compassionate thing. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you were very grounded in your belief from the start. So, yeah. So how does the peace of not eating creatures today manifest in your life?
Well, today I just can't imagine. I would be so upset to know. In fact, I traveled to Japan. I went on a tour. It wasn't vegan. However, I told them I was, and they told me they would accommodate me. And what I learned, it's those, like in the miso soups, that has fish in it. So, we had to make changes. So even the things that are not, readily obvious, you have to ask. It's like, well, what's in that? Because oftentimes they're using, animal products in order to make things taste good. So I am very conscious of what I put in my body. I read labels. I ask. I'm not embarrassed. When I go to a restaurant, it doesn't matter. I always can find one vegan option, and I'm happy to let the restaurant know I am vegan and what can you do for me? And I do that, not because I think I'm all that important, but because the animals are that important. And, who's to say that in my asking that question, I'm not opening up a dialogue with someone, or I'm not making someone at least think, gee, what is in that food that I'm, eating, or what else could I be eating? And by the way, what she's eating is delicious. So why can't I do that as well?
Yes. Go ahead.
No, I feel like it's a form of advocacy when I visit people and they know I'm coming, and they have to go shopping for special food for me. I don't care. I'm good with that because they're doing it for the animals. They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah. And every time you get a chance to drop a seed, what you did, I love that too. I did that also at a festival. I made sure to, a festival that we had a booth for, and it wasn't a vegan booth, but nevertheless, I asked. It was an animal festival. A wildlife festival at a nature center this past weekend, and I asked, will there be vegan food? I asked the organizers because I want them to know that people want that. People want vegan food. I wanted them to make the connection. So any way we can drop that seed to get that connection made is very important. So y'all, please let us know you're watching us. And if you have any questions, and make sure you like and subscribe. All right. So what is your most memorable experience that you've had so far in your vegan lifestyle, Cheryl? What would you say?
One year I made a Thanksgiving and we didn't have turkey, and everybody loved it. And I knew then that this was something that everyone could enjoy. during COVID, I hired a personal chef to teach me how to cook vegan. And then we had a big party for like 25 people. And we made all of my favorite foods and served it to them so that they could see how delicious all of these plant-based options were. So for me, being able to share the good foods out there with my friends and family and hopefully, inspire people, that's probably been my most heartfelt win. Even, and my daughter, I have a daughter who was vegan before and she's struggling with it now, but she knows I'm right because she's been there. And so she's starting to incorporate that into her own family's lifestyle. And, in the beginning, when I would come and visit, might have been a little pushback about why must you be so rigid about this, which I didn't consider myself rigid. But now when I go and visit, all my vegan options are right there ready for me. She points them out. We even go out and eat, and they source the restaurants for me, and they all eat there, of course. So I consider that a win.
That is a win, definitely. All right. Yeah. And so what would you say to someone that's struggling and sad and depressed right now, a new vegan that feels like, wow, I became vegan and I thought everyone was going to go vegan with me and now they're not. They're making fun of me. What would you say to that person, Cheryl?
I hear you. I feel you. I feel your pain. This journey is not an easy one. I have struggled with this. I've worked on it in many different ways. And yet I'm not struggling to the extent that the animals are. And until that situation is remedied, I will continue to stand tall for them. And I'm proud of myself. Now I still have to live my life, and everyone needs to find joy in their life. There's only so much I can do. I think part of it is knowing that, I'm not going to necessarily change the world, just myself, but I can do my part. So just doing your part, knowing that you've done what you can in that day is enough. And then you've got to find joy in your life, because we're here to live, and we're here to live it to the fullest.
That's very true. Taking responsibility for your life. That's all we can do, is be responsible for our own lives. Mm-hmm. So I love your confidence, and I'm borrowing some of it right now. So what inspired you to start the Better Life for Animals podcast, Cheryl?
So it's been an evolution. As I said, I started off vegan. That was enough. Then there came a point where that wasn't enough. I needed to advocate. COVID hit, and I got more upset over our food choices. And every few years, it seems I've done a little bit more. And I thought, I just felt compelled to write some children's books on what's happening in factory farming. And from there, I got them published. I was very grateful to Lantern Books for doing that with me. And then I needed to promote them. And how do you do that? I had to get a website. This all just happened, slowly. And I built a website, and I had a little bit of a social media presence, and that was going for a while. And it just didn't feel like I was doing enough. And as we both know, if you're not active, you can get depressed. So for me, the Better Life for Animals podcast came about when I was ready, because I've been struggling with this for a few years. It's like I knew I needed to do more, but I was afraid, quite frankly. I was nervous. I'm a little bit of an introvert. I wasn't sure how I felt about speaking in public and what have you. But the injustice was driving me. It's like, you got to do something. So with that, last year, I thought, all that I'm trying to do here, it's not enough. I could do more, because I could do more. I thought, okay, what can I do? I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't have a sanctuary. I live in the suburbs. Well, I do have a voice. I can speak. And with help and support, I could have a podcast. So that's where that came about. So it's been an evolution of steps, because each step I feel like I could do a little more. Each step I feel a little empowered. And I recognize that while it may feel like a crowded space for us who live here, there's very few of us. We need more of people like me, just regular people who are upset over the injustice, who want to make the world a better place. And, so they figure out what they can do to forward that cause. So by working on my podcast, I've had the profoundly wonderful experience of speaking to some leaders in this industry who have such amazing insights. I'm very proud of the guests, because I know the guests come on because we all are in this for the animals. So I'm very thankful for that. And then as we were working, we realized, sanctuaries, there's so many sanctuaries that need help. They're just operating on a shoestring. They barely can keep the lights on. You may think that they're going to be at your webinar today, but no, they have a vet emergency, So to be able to shine a light on those people that are doing something for these poor animals, the very few that make it their way, make it out of that factory farming system, so that an opportunity is presented for the rest of us who don't live among animals except for dogs and cats, to see this is what a cow is really like in its natural state. It's basically just this massive puppy, or pigs that are, as we know, so smart, so intelligent. And we just what we do is brutal, So I think it's just been an evolution, and I don't know that I'm done yet. Now I'm starting to get out and speak just as, what I've just from my experience. And that's turning out to be very satisfying as well.
Yeah, and you're an example of someone that wasn't an extrovert, challenging themselves, challenging yourself to get out there and do what is needed, and to really up-level your voice for the animals.
Exactly. Yeah, we've all got something in us that could help forward this cause. So I think what I'm trying to model is, this is what it could look like, just a regular person trying to get that word out, to make, to change hearts and minds along with the rest.
Right. Well, you're doing it. So where can people watch the podcast or hear the podcast?
So they're available wherever you watch your podcasts. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, Apple. It's right off of our website, betterlifeforanimals.com/podcast. But you can find all this information about our books, about our blogs, our outreach. It's all there at our website.
All right. And what about Mercy for Animals? How did you get involved with them? And tell us a little bit about their organization, please.
Well, Mercy for Animals is, in my opinion, they've really got their hands on what's really wrong with our system nationally and globally. And they have the means and the expertise to change that, the legislative pieces, they have the ability to gather celebrity that, can connect with, more people, so that we can make a change. Because I think it's very important to do something like what I'm doing, just at my level, but it's also important, in my view, to support the larger entities that are out there making a difference, because they've got the funds, they've got the word, they've got the expertise. I find that, and they're very much focused on factory farming, which is very near and dear to my heart. And they're delightful. I've spent a lot of time with them. Of course, I donate, and I'm part of their Compassionate Collective, but also I enjoy all their fundraisers and all the many things that they do to make this world a better place.
Definitely. We all need to take action in some way. So it's wonderful. I saw them at Veg Fest. And a lot of my friends volunteer for them. I wish I had time to volunteer for all the organizations. Unfortunately, I don't, but it's really nice to see my friends out there stepping up. So we have a lovely comment here from Claudia, who is saying, so happy to hear about your podcast. Thank you to All Creatures for bringing these people and resources to us. We need each other so much. Absolutely, Claudia.
Thank you.
for watching it. So, well, let's get back to the sanctuaries. Do you have a favorite story from one of the sanctuaries that you featured?
What I'm really excited about is LEAD. So LEAD is with Daniel Hanish. She has created basically a compassionate equivalent to like a 4-H program where young people can learn about, how we raise animals, what they need, also leadership, management. But then when the animal is, after their program is over for them, the animal stays at the sanctuary as opposed to being sold for slaughter. I am a big proponent of the teaching children about a compassionate lifestyle because, they're open to it. And they're the ones that are going to really make the difference. They're the ones who are inheriting this planet that, is unfortunately losing ground every day. So every sanctuary that I've been talking to that has this component where LEAD is in there to help educate and offer programs, I think it helps the community. It also helps the sanctuary itself, because sanctuaries they need to run like a business and they need to have funds. And this allows for, commitments, volunteers, and even donations to help make them sustainable. I mean, we have so many stories. There are some that have, we're talking micro sanctuaries where these poor people work all day and then they come home at night and work on their farms, and they have no time. They have no life. So it's really those that have just devoted their entire life to this cause, taking care of those few animals that just impress and inspire me.
It's incredible, people that work in sanctuaries. I mean, I know the hours they put in, and then always having to raise money all the time consistently. Oh my goodness, those are the frontline workers. So grateful for them.
Absolutely.
Yes. And
go around.
What's the best way we can support the sanctuaries right now? I mean,
well, I think when you see something on Instagram and it says, Elvis needs surgery, please donate $10. Donate $10. Help everyone that you can. That's why I believe in, like I make donations on a regular recurring basis to Mercy for Animals, because they then can count on my money. They know they can budget around that. It's that. So if you can make a budget and commit to, donating on a regular basis, I think that really helps the sanctuaries that you care about. And, those opportunities when you see them, when your heart is pulled at for a specific animal, you can perhaps don't get that Starbucks today, help an animal.
Right. Definitely. So you're talking about children and how important they are. Well, what about, I mean, you have grandchildren, right? You said, and so with your grandchildren and their friends, what are their attitudes towards animals? Would you have interactions with their friends, or do you have any special stories about that? Or,
well, I was in Los Angeles this week with my grandson. We were checking out preschools, and children just gravitate toward animals. In this case, it was a turtle, and he spent most of his time just following the turtle, feeding the turtle, talking about the turtle. I think if he ends up at that school, it will be because of this pet turtle. Now there's a conversation to be had about, should that turtle be in that classroom? But I'm not here to change everything. But children naturally resonate and connect with animals. I think it's kind of raised out of us, especially if you're living in cities, which increasingly that's where we find ourselves. So we need to maintain that connection. And that's why sanctuaries play such an important role. Instead of taking your children to the zoo, which is basically just a prison for animals, try a sanctuary where they get to be living lives on their own terms, just as people are.
Yeah, I know. And you're right about things not being black and white because, yeah, about that turtle in the classroom. I know I volunteer at different organizations, and there's nothing that's 100% perfect, for animals, I think. I mean, we do the best we can to try to get them the help we need of it. I mean, it's just like we're living in a world that is not, I mean, it's not set up for all beings. So we have to do the best we can. I mean, it's easy to judge, but I mean, the turtle in the classroom is teaching. So, I mean, I don't know. Thankfully, it's not my decision. And, but yeah, right. We just have to do the best we can and help people be aware, right, that turtle might need to go outside sometimes or whatever, right?
Right. Right.
So, but yes, a lot can be learned from a turtle and how intelligent they are and how they recognize you and they know you and they bond with you. And so they are special because I volunteer at the Nature Center and seeing those little turtles, we have a couple with 2 feet, missing 2 legs, and then some that are missing 1 and some that are just didn't get the nutritional needs that they weren't met. So their shells are not formed. You can see that the markings on the shells are jagged and they're not, yeah, it's nutritional deficits. I mean, and there's a channel that I watch this poor turtle never was on the kitchen floor for 50 years, something like that. I don't know. I mean, anyway, thankfully saved and doing, maybe that's not accurate. It seems crazy, but from decades, let's just say. But yes, and thankfully thriving now. So if we can help animals in any way we can, we need to do it. So thank you for everything you're doing there and everyone that's watching. Again, please let us know your comments and questions. So tell us about your books and how, and now, so the books are for children.
Yes.
And what do your grandkids think about the books?
My grandkids are a little young still.
Uh-huh.
And once, what's really important with, children's books is, and there was a dual purpose to this, is that while children are, being read to, the adults have to agree to it. So you have, if you're an adult parent and you're not leading a vegan lifestyle and you're feeding yourselves and your family eggs and chicken and fish and what have you, then you might be a little uncomfortable because your children naturally are going to ask questions. And that's what the books are meant to do. So it's maybe they're not, flying off the shelves for that reason. And I understand that. And yet it's still, I'm still glad I have written them because the information needs to be available. So but the good news about them, and I think the offsetting piece was that they're beautifully illustrated. I hired somebody from Spain, this gorgeous illustrator named Irene Blasco. And they just sing off the pages because of the illustrations. And I think that helps with, the attractiveness of, the book, helps with the subject matter. And the books are not, they're not difficult. I'm not trying to say they are. But if you're not vegan or not open to it, then you might, not make that choice. So what I've been doing is donating them to sanctuaries where, people are open to that. And that's worked out well. Or anytime I'm at a summit or, AVA or anything like that, I try to get a table and, the books do well in that way. And of course, the people out there that are, subscribers and, understand the compassionate, lifestyle that we're trying to promote, they find them as, important resources.
yeah, any way we can get the message out there, and the more ways, the better. So yeah, and what about your kids? How do they feel about this?
Well, my daughter, both of my kids are in their 40s.
Hmm.
And my daughter was a vegan when she was in high school for a while because she visited, she went away for one summer to a cousin who was also vegan. And she likes to tell me, well, I was vegan first. But she understands what I'm doing. She gets it. And I think while she tries to incorporate mostly plant-based into her life and her family's life, she also, she's not vegan at this time.
Hmm.
And my son is a completely different subject. We don't really, he knows how I feel. He's not changing at this point. And, he's my child. So as we talked about, all I can do is what I can do.
Right. And I love that acceptance, and you're still loving your family for who they are and allowing them to be on their own path. I mean, and you realizing that, well, we can't force someone to change.
No, we can't.
Right. I have to have acceptance also with my family members. Thankfully, my brother is vegan. And so I have a sister who's the opposite almost of veganism. So, and I know that if I open my mouth, it's going to make it worse. So I just have to suck it up and be quiet.
Right.
Right.
I try to lead through example. I don't lead any conversation with, what are you eating? I don't ever do that. Now, if they ask me, then I will
Right.
talk about it. But, and politically and just the time we are right now, it just feels additionally difficult. But all the more reason to stand firm, because I think this is just a phase, and things are going to turn around. They have to. We cannot keep doing this. It may not happen in my lifetime, sad to say, but it is going to happen because we cannot continue to do this. So someday, we both know we're all going to look back on this and go, what were we doing? How cruel is that? But until then, we have to just keep modeling it.
Very true. You're right. We have to be the example. And when you bring good foods to the family gatherings or any gatherings, then people taste it, and they're not just thinking you're eating a pile of lettuce. So
No, exactly. Yeah. I always bring my vegan options, and I always have opportunities to try other things wherever I go, restaurants, at home, anywhere.
right. So what role ever in an everyday life can someone play? People play in creating a better life for animals. And I mean, people might say, I don't have time to do this. What would you say to that person just for everyday living?
Every time that you make a choice with what you're going to eat, you're doing something. You're advocating. When you make, when you don't eat meat, when you have plant-based yogurts or cheeses or dairy, or if you have, a salad, you try tofu or tempeh, you try, which we all like, legumes and beans and all the many things. If you just spend that time to see what other options there are, every time you put something in your mouth, you're having an impact. So it's not about time. It can become that, but it doesn't have to start that way.
Very true. Very true. Everything we buy at the store makes a difference, and in your and it's impactful. I mean, that your wallet counts.
Yes.
So yeah, and wallet, like, what about the $100,000 campaign for Mercy for Animals? Can you tell us about that, Cheryl?
Well, I donate regularly every month, and I had just made it a personal goal for myself. I'm not a wealthy person, but I thought that sounds like a real number to me. And as long as I'm working, I have a job, which I do still, I can afford this. And my goal is to reach $100,000. And of course, when they have a gala or anything I can support, whenever I can, I do it. I do that. So that's just my personal goal. It sounds good to me. And I think I can feel like, I'm making a difference for Cheryl.
Yeah, you are making a difference, that's for sure. So what about plant-based? I mean, what the term plant-based, do you think that's a turn off for people, or the term vegan? I mean, I felt like I told someone I'm a vegan, and then I felt like, why did I say that? I wish I had said something different, because of that. Can it be very polarizing? Do you find that to be an issue, or how do you say what you eat, or what do you do there?
Well, I understand it. I've heard this conversation many times back and forth about, should we say plant-based? It sounds less divisive. Should we say vegan? Because that's really the compassionate option. Plant-based doesn't necessarily talk about compassion. But I am a vegan, and I'm a proud vegan. And I personally believe that everybody, cognitive dissonance aside, they know. And if they don't, the information's out there and they're making a choice not to know. So I'm good with vegan. I'm proud to be a vegan, but I understand what you're saying. And when it comes to food choices, what we really want is everyone to think it sounds delicious and inviting. We don't want people to feel like, oh, that's a vegan menu, so I won't be looking at that because I'm not vegan. It's not a club. So there's some conversation, and I think there's some merit to mixing it in, because I don't know about where you live, Mariquita, but we're struggling here in Las Vegas to keep vegan restaurants open. So maybe what has to happen is they have to have more vegan options within every restaurant, and over time, that will increase. I hope. I know there are people who don't agree with that, but this is the world we're living in. And I think if I show up at your non-vegan restaurant and I order your vegan option, or when you don't have one, I write on my comment card, where's my vegan option, which works, then, they'll make what sells. So if you as a restaurant can make something that's delicious, people are going to want that. And if they knew while they're enjoying it that, no one had to suffer as a result of this, isn't that a bonus? I would think that then people would go, you know what, this isn't so difficult after all.
I think you're right. Definitely. I go to restaurants that are not all vegan, and I do support. And when there's no option on the menu, then I ask, what can you make vegan? There's always something that they can make vegan. And the last time that happened, they went out of their way for me. It was amazing. They were so kind, and oh my goodness, it was a sports bar that I was taking my friend that was in town visiting this area. And so I wouldn't have expected that, but they really were so kind. So yeah, I think it's, and you just never discount, right? If you don't see it on the menu, don't get mad, ask, and people will accommodate you most of the time. So yeah, and I'm glad what you said about the vegan and plant-based and everything. And, the wording, yeah, because trying to introduce that in as a positive, as a positive. But no, I want to say I'm a vegan, and that's why I said it, right? Mm-hmm. And but I think it was also in the health atmosphere, like at the chiropractor saying, wow, you were very agile, and you're more. He said, I've seen people your age that aren't even able to move. So I'm 57, yeah, almost 58 next week, I think. I don't know, coming up very soon. Next week, I think, yeah, I'll be 58. So that's why I introduced the food when he said that, right? Because I wanted him to get it without being too much the link between eating fruits and vegetables, which I really said I eat tons of fruits and vegetables, whole food, plant-based, beans and lentils and everything, because I wanted this young man to understand and get it. But he, and also we talked about the dangers of the processed foods, and gosh, Yeah. So anytime I can use try to throw something in like that, I do. And you are very aware of that also. I mean, especially with your journey and when you were eating the raw and everything, I'm sure you know the great health benefits of raw foods, the living foods. And I've had friends that are raw. I mean, I have friends that are raw vegans, and their families will say to them, both of them, I mean, or three of them said the same thing. Their families are like, when are you going to eat real food? Well, that is the real food, right? Or you're going to be weak from eating those foods. Well, this is the natural foods of the earth. What are your comments to that?
Marquita, I'm 66. And my blood work, I just had it done. It looks excellent. Like you just said, I feel like I have more agility and more energy than I would if I were eating a traditional SAD diet.
Mm.
I like to think once again that, I'm not perfect. And of course, we're all bodies age, but I have more vitality going for me because of my compassionate choices. And I think I'm an example, as we all are. And that's back to what we were saying before, is that I can only, I hope to be something that is inspirational. It's like, well, what are you doing? Because it seems to be working. That's the kind of question we're looking for. I'm not, I'm not going to change anybody if they don't want to, but if they see something attractive and they're interested in making a change for better, all the science, all the evidence, we know it. It's plant-based. There's nothing good. Your body doesn't need any of that, anything that's cruel to survive or to thrive.
You're right. And I saw someone commenting. There was a post talking about how wonderful it was plant-based foods were being introduced at this event, at this health event. And I saw someone commenting saying, not everyone can live on a vegetarian diet. So I didn't get involved in that, but vegetarian compared to vegan, but nevertheless, right? The idea that we have to eat meats is just so prevalent. And I don't know how we get past it. I mean, the typical person, many people still believe the myths that we can't make it without eating meat. And do you run into that a lot? People saying, but we have to eat it?
Mm-hmm. Where do you get your protein? The same place you get it, from plants. There's just, is it that they truly believe it, or that it's convenient to believe it and they want to believe it and they want to hold on to their old patterns and traditions, which I understand. I think that there's a piece of that, but if they really wanted to know, what's going on here, that information is available. It's available on all the good work that you're doing. It's available where, on Better Life for Animals. It's like, are you curious? Are you curious about, what those poor animals go through? Are you interested in knowing that these things are clogging your arteries and, creating an early death for you? People have to be open. Something has to happen. Everybody has a different experience, but something will happen if you're open, and you'll make a shift. You'll go, wait a minute, all these things that they tell me can't all just be true just because somebody said it. I need to do my own research, especially about your health. For heaven's sakes, we know that. You've got to do your own research.
Very true. And people are many people believe that that when we get older, we're going to have to be on medication. That's just a fact of life,
Yeah.
right? Oh, that's part of getting old. Getting old is taking 100 pills.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be like that. See,
No.
it's frustrating. And it's sad that people are taught to believe this, but thankfully we can continue to be advocates. And I love that you said you're not perfect. I'm not perfect either. I don't eat perfect all the time, but I am aware of what I'm putting in my mouth.
Well, it's just like smoking. I mean, you watch a movie from the 60s, everyone was smoking. The 50s, everyone was smoking. Nobody's smoking anymore like that. We all thought it was fine until one day we realized it wasn't. Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Driving drunk was, not cool, but it wasn't criminal. But it is now. Why? Because some mothers got together and said, I'm done with this, And so people are capable of change.
Yeah, we have to get together and stick together to get this movement going and to reach that tipping point.
Yeah.
So no matter what it takes, definitely. And with the children's books, I mean, that's such a wonderful way, because sometimes people feel like they don't have a good way to advocate. But what you're showing is through all these different ways of advocating for animals, for the Mercy for Animals, for the children's books. I mean, even just spreading the seeds with your food and your persona, how you show up in the world, right? Your good health.
Doing everything I can.
Right. And so where do you see yourself with the podcast? I mean, is that going to, in the books, do you think you're going to be writing a book for adults or at any time soon? Or what do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I will continue to be advocating for animals throughout the rest of my life. Of that, I am sure. What form it will take, I'm not as sure. I don't have a book for adults on my mind at this time, but who's to say, having a few years under my belt with these podcasts and interviewing all these wonderful experts, that there might not be something, to add, because I would be looking for what would my unique addition be?
Right, exactly. And so what about spirituality? How do you, I mean, a lot of, when people are struggling with the sadness, what would you recommend? Do you have spiritual beliefs or traditions or things to calm yourself down? And,
I've spent plenty of time struggling with depression over this very topic. I'm going to just be very candid about that. But I work on myself. I do meditate. I do believe in a spiritual life after this one. I do believe that we're here for a reason. I can't say that I know what that reason is, but I'm very clear that at the end of my days, when I look back, if I can say, was I compassionate to all animals? Did I show up? Was I a good friend, mother, spouse, all of those things? Then I feel like I will have done the best that I can. And that seems to be why I'm here. If there's a bigger role for me to play, and if something happens that we all can jump in there and really flip that needle, I know you and I are going to be right there. But, until that time, we just have to stay strong. And I do have to check in with myself, remind myself that I am a person, and I need to have compassion for myself so that I can have compassion for everyone else. And I, would love nothing more than for this to all change tomorrow. And some of my belief lives there, because we could change our mind tomorrow. I've done it. You did it. It can happen. So I don't give up on that. But realistically, I'm going to stick in my lane, do the best that I can. And that's what I'm here to do.
Well, those are very wise words. And I love the meditation aspect of it, which sometimes I like, the world is so loud right now. I felt like I was so overwhelmed last night. It was just engulfing me. And I just felt like I can't take this anymore, right? This chaos and this unrest and just the instability of the way I felt. I felt like I am not stable, right? And so but I just to sit with it in the quiet, I have some little lights, some like star lights, and I put those on and just kind of sat there. And I didn't really I didn't try to force myself to do anything, but just to lay there. And yeah. and so it's really nice that you have the courage to share your story with how you've overcome this and had these feelings, and to be an example of courage and still moving forward in your spiritual beliefs, and that you're in tune with those, and the quietness of meditation is very important. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, very important.
Yes. And so let me ask you about the grandchildren. They're probably very connected to the earth, still. I mean, at that age. And would you say that they are, how are they navigating these challenging times? I mean, where little children are not outside as much anymore. Do you feel like they're still, how does that show up? I mean, when with the interaction with the children, do you see any issues with that?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles in the 60s. And when I was a child, during the summer, I would get on my bike and I would be gone all day. No one knew where I was until dinner. And that was, parents were not, it was not their job to entertain us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's changed, at least in my experience, being my grandchildren all live in a city. So no, they don't go anywhere unsupervised. They don't get to go down the street without, worrying about a car. They do go to the park, and my grandchildren have wonderful, privileged lives, and they get to do, great things, but a lot of it's manufactured. And I'm sure that we are paying a price for that. But that's probably back to why I think sanctuaries can be so important. I took them last year. We went to the Gentle Barn, which is outside of Los Angeles. And, it's a slower experience. It's just being with the animals. They got to hang out with the turkeys. Was hoping, maybe with, seeing these turkeys, you would then never want to eat one, but I'm not their mother. I'm their grandmother. I'm going to let my daughter raise them, but they do have a different experience, even with my experience, as a person that grew up in LA. But that seems to be more and more what we have, and it's all around us. I mean, we're all connected to our phones. We're all, it's all about no FaceTime, not enough this, not enough. We're always, guarding our kids from, overstimulation. So it's nice that they can just maybe go outside and with a piece of chalk and draw on the sidewalk or, in the driveway. They like to do that, or, play with my son, my grandson found some little bugs. We went out in the backyard and, there's squirrels and birds, and he likes to pick blueberries. So there's, they're very much into their garden, and that's lovely. But it's a different world. I don't know what the answer is.
I don't know either, but it is definitely different. I don't ever see children outside playing. I mean, and I do sometimes, but not in the yards. I see them sometimes riding their bikes, but yeah, it's a different world. And who's to say that there's one good and one bad? It is what it is. We just need to bring that awareness of all beings in, like you were saying. Have compassion for ourselves as well on this journey, compassion for the animals, compassion for ourselves, and for those that haven't yet heard the message fully or haven't integrated that message. They might have heard it through their ears, but not in their heart. They haven't felt it in their heart.
Right.
So, yeah. And so that's what your books are doing for children, is connecting the dots. And definitely. So I want to remind everyone to please go to www.allcreatures.org, all-creatures.org. If you want to make a monthly or one-time reoccurring donation to keep these episodes and all of our contributions that we are doing accessible. And I want to give you the last words here, Cheryl, and make sure that you tell us where we can find your books, the podcast, and what are your final thoughts in this wonderful conversation today. And I thank you, Claudia, and everybody behind the scenes that have been so quiet. But nevertheless, thank you for joining us. So take it away, Cheryl.
Well, Better Life for Animals is betterlifeforanimals.com. And on that website, we've got a wealth of resources. We've got blogs, and we've got sanctuary stories. We've got all of the podcasts. We are working on putting together a sanctuary summit. So stay tuned for that. We're looking forward to putting some of the leaders in the industry together to talk about best practices so that all of the sanctuaries out there can thrive and band together and support one another. And I very much appreciate what you're doing, Mariquita. This is such an important vehicle to get the word out there. We just have to keep talking. We have to keep talking with our hearts, and we can't let despair take us down. I mean, it has its moments, but you got to get yourself back up, because we're here, we're alive. There's a reason for that. And, we have to be the ones that forge ahead during what feels like difficult times, but there are a lot of energies on our side. So we just have to ride it. And I think we're all going to turn out much more compassionate as a result of it. And it's good things coming our way. I'm optimistic.
Well, I'm standing with you. Good things are coming our way, right? And because of you, me, and all creatures. And then, your podcast and all the action that everyone else is taking. So we're making a difference. So.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So I really want to thank you, Cheryl, and everyone for watching. And make sure you check out Cheryl's website and go get those books and join her podcast. All right. Well, thank you, Cheryl, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.